Hello, my brothers and sisters. Today, our station church is the Church of St. Cecilia in Trastevere. It's a beautiful church with a whole bunch of mosaics, and we'll see inside. Now, St. Cecilia's story is very interesting, so I want to spend a lot of time and meditate upon this. This might be a little bit longer than my normal reflection. To go into the story of St. Cecilia, according to tradition, she was an early Christian who got married to this Roman man. This Roman man was not yet Christian, and yet after having a mystical experience and because of the example of St. Cecilia, he converted, and soon after his brother did as well. However, this was during a time of persecution. And so Cecilia's husband and his brother went around and collected the bodies of those Christians who were martyred and then gave them a proper burial. They were found out by the Roman authorities, and when told to burn incense to Jupiter, they stubbornly refused, and because of this, they themselves were martyred. Attention was then given to St. Cecilia, and St. Cecilia was also martyred, but the story of her martyrdom is somewhat odd. Originally, they tried to suffocate her, drown her in the baths that were attached to her house, but she wouldn't die. Then after that, they tried to strike her with axes, and unfortunately, she still didn't die, but they left her to bleed out, and she survived for 3 days. And during that time, she spoke with the Pope, she had spoke with many Christians, gave them good example, gave away all of her earthly benefits, and so she kind of consecrated this spot. And so a shrine was built on this place that she was martyred on. However, her body was later moved, and it was actually lost for centuries. However, according to the legend, Saint Pope Paschal received a vision of where Cecilia's remains were. He went to them, discovered them, took them to this shrine that had been dedicated to Saint Cecilia, and there built up this grand basilica. You can also see this reflected in the artwork of the church. When you look up at the apse, you can see this beautiful mosaic of Christ and some of the saints. And to the left, there is St. Cecilia. And then a little bit further over, you see this figure with this square halo. A square halo, by the way, means that the person was recognized as being very holy, but they were still alive when the artwork was made. So this is a person who is somewhat being proclaimed a saint before they actually die. But in his hands, you see the church itself. You see St. Cecilia in Trastevere. And so this is an image of Saint Paschal presenting the church in honor of Cecilia to Christ, this sort of movement of dedication of what is going on. One more story regarding Saint Cecilia. In 1599, her tomb was actually opened, and they found that her body was incorrupt. That means that it did not decay, that the body was still preserved. And there was an artist that was present there, and he created this sculpture as a sort of image of what they found in her tomb of this person who had been dead for centuries and centuries. And you can see this placed at the center of the church, this sort of statue. If you look carefully, you can see that Saint Cecilia, the statue of Saint Cecilia, has 3 fingers and then one, the pointing to the 3 persons of the one Trinity. For my reflection today, I want to dwell on Saint Cecilia's husband and his brother. These two were going out and burying the bodies of Christian martyrs. They were performing a corporal work of mercy. And because of this, they were discovered and then subsequently martyred. And I was reminded of that old phrase, if you were put on trial for being Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? These two did this sort of humble act that put their lives in danger, but they did it because they knew it was the right one. And so looking at our own lives, how are we carrying out the corporal works of mercy? How are we carrying out the spiritual works of mercy? How are we actually following Christ and putting Christianity into practice in the world? Anyways, guys, God bless you during your Lenten journey, and hopefully I'll see you around.